Okay, what I brought with me tonight is a Atwater Kent model 32. Let me adjust my screen. There, okay, there. It's a Atwater Kent model 32. It's this one is really good shape. You can see the finish on it looks really good.
Yeah.
It's it's a 7-tube. It's a 7-tube battery set. Takes all 01As, or you can put a 12 or a 71 or something like that in the output tube if you want. And it's only got one dial. It's got 4 RF stages, or 3 RF stages in a detector, a tune detector. So this one control works 4 variable capacitors. And I've had it playing in the past, but I was looking for 01As to put in it, and I couldn't find enough. So I'll get it working this week and have it playing next week.
Okay. Yeah, it looks really nice.
These aren't real common. Every so often you'll see one on eBay, but they're not. They were since they were a 7-tube design, they were the top of the line, and that we're talking about 1926, 1927 in that vicinity. So getting this guy up and running will be. Oh, and while I had when I bought it, I must have put a bunch of extra tubes in it, and just to bring them home. And two of the extra tubes that were in here were a pair of 45s. So those will come in handy sometime.
Sure.
I don't know if they're good, but at least they were in there. So that's what I've been working on today. And with the 7-tube chassis, 7-tube design, if I remember right, it pulls in stations quite well.
I bet it does. Yeah.
I'll learn more tomorrow.
Well, I got something here that might be kind of along the line. Hey, Lyle, let's take a look at this. I got this at the show on Saturday, but the wires are missing, but at least it has a driver in it.
Oh, yeah.
So I hooked up a battery between these 2 posts and I didn't get anything. Is that how you do it, with a 1.5 volt battery?
Yeah, 1.5 volt battery should at least give you some static out of the horn.
Clicking. Oh, okay. No, I didn't. It's dead then. But the driver is there. So what's the most likely problem? That this coil right here is open?
Now, if you can put an ohm meter on it and get any resistance at all, well, it should be pretty low. But if it's open, if you can't get any resistance, it probably is open.
So how do you, if it's open, how do you fix it? I mean, is there an actual part you can get for that, or?
Well, if you can't, yeah, you probably have to just find another horn, at this point in time.
The first thing I check is where the wires make it to the connection there. A lot of times the wires are busted right at the connection, and you can resolder those.
Okay, thanks. I'll give it a look at.
And another trick somebody uses, I don't know exactly what voltage they use, but they use like a 0.1 microfarad cap and charge it up to 100 or 200 volts and put it across there. And quite often it will arc the connection back together wherever the gap is, kind of spot welds it. I mean, that's kind of a last ditch effort. I mean,
Yeah,
that saves it.
Does that patch work for a while, or is it only temporary fixing it?
I've heard that some of them have worked for quite a while, yeah. Sometimes it's the solder and the copper that, where it's soldered, the copper gets an oxide layer between it and the solder, and so it gets high resistance there. And that's where your high voltage zap would bite through that oxidation, or the fact that you resolder that connection, you reestablish the connection.
That's one of those situations where you keep your fingers crossed.
Yep.
And hope that and if it's like you just said, when it works, it's okay.
Mhm.
It lets you have a working speaker.
They do that fairly often with the Atwater Kent transformers,
Yes,
and some of those get saved that way.
yeah, that's true.
Oh, he's getting the flashlight out and the magnifiers and getting a good look at that. Yeah.
Well, there's a chance that the open is down in the middle of the coil, down inside where you won't see it, Pat.
Yeah.
That's where Bruce's technique of zapping it with a voltage and welding it across the gap works.
Sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. Well, it's like you said a little bit ago, you just keep your fingers crossed.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, thanks, you guys.
Keep the fingers crossed and the sphincter tight.
Well, did anyone else get something cool from the show?
How was the fan? Did the fan work? That 4-bladed?
Yeah, it works on low and medium, but on high, it doesn't, it actually slows down. You can hear it ramp up low, medium, but when it goes to high, it actually blows less air. So I don't know what that means.
So has the shaft got a lot of clearance? In other words, you can pull the shaft in and out a fair amount.
I didn't test that.
Sometimes you get the thrust washers kind of go away. And so when you increase the magnetic field, it takes the whole armature and moves it out. And so it gets out of the main magnetic field and will actually slow it down.
Oh, wow.
So you got to look and see if you can, if it's got a slot back and forth, then you may have to put a thrush washer or on one end to keep it from moving too far.
I got a project radio. I just thought I'd bring a piece of it up.
All right.
This is a Zenith. It's a 7B02 chassis. It goes in a console. I actually got it when I was in high school.
Oh, wow.
Well, we had, I went to Benson, and at the time they had people would donate radios, and it was for the from the toy and joy makers, and we'd repair radios, and they donate them to needy families. And this one was pretty beat up. I mean, the cabinet was not in good shape, and it was pretty ugly.
But it found a needy family, right?
Me, I got it working, and I put it in, and I told the teacher I was done with it, and he looked it over and he says, "I don't think anybody's going to want that thing." He says, "Why don't you take it home?" And to my mother's chagrin, I did. I took it home, and I've had it ever since. But the volume the on-off volume switch broke, and you can kind of see that it's a long shaft on the thing, and it's a narrow shaft, and it goes through the tuning knob, and so it's hollow. So it's really special. And so I contacted Dick Dale Schneider, and I sent him pictures of it, and he happened to have a switch, so I went over to his place and he gave me a switch to put in there, and that repaired it. I mean, the thing sounds pretty good, but I've been working on recapping it, and one of the common problems with these sets is the wiring. It turns brittle.
Yeah.
So you
Oh, yeah.
probably can't see it, but I've done a lot of wiring in the bottom of this, and there's still more to do on
Yeah.
there. You can see there's
Yeah,
a lot of spaghetti in there. I'm sure that the people who assembled this way back, this is about a 1941 model. They probably took a long time putting it all together. But then they had the advantage of putting it in layers.
Right.
So when you got to replace the wiring, it ain't pretty. You pull one out and it breaks the insulation off two others as you're
Yeah.
redoing it.
Yeah. I
is it fabric wiring, Larry, or is it plastic, that real brittle plastic?
it's rubber.
I think it's a rubber.
I should have said rubber instead of plastic. Yeah, it is rubber. And if once it gets brittle, it just flakes, disintegrates.
Yeah, and it's certain colors don't petrify as much as others.
Oh,
Like some of the black, all the black wiring in this petrified. And I thought I had a problem with the capacitor in it, because I touch a capacitor that went to the base of one of the audio output tubes, and it would start distorting and get a lot of noise. And I thought, boy, how is this? I couldn't understand how to do it, because it'd only do if you touched one end of it. And I took the capacitor out and tested it, and it tested good, and I couldn't bend the leads and everything. Nothing seemed to be a problem with it. So I replaced a wire in there and fixed it. And so it had a crack in the insulation and must have been touching something else. It only took a little jar to make it short out.
Yep.
So anyway, this has been a project. It's not going to go back to normal by any means, because way back when I was a kid and had the radio, my mom looked at it and she said, well, why don't you antique it? So she got me these paints, and I antiqued the cabinet.
ah,
And years later, after I joined the club, and saw some of the radios and what they're doing, and I, well, shoot, I shouldn't have done that. So I stripped it
Wow.
and started, but the veneer on the set, not in very good shape.
Hmm.
But when I stripped it, I couldn't get all the paint out. So, in some of the recesses, there's still little bits of paint in there. So anyway, it's more for sentimental reasons that I'm keeping this thing than for anything else, because it had a 78 record player in it, which I took out and threw away. And I went to Goodwill and I got a 3-speed record player and made a platform for it and put a 3-speed record player in it.
sure.
But I don't know if you can see this, but the switch for it never had a switch. It's got a little switch built into the chassis, right where my finger's pointing. But this piece here I made, so I'm trying to make a switch so you can switch it from the outside. Otherwise, you got to stick your finger through a hole in the bottom of the cabinet, move the switch for the record player. So I'm going to try to make it more copacetic,
Ah,
easier to do.
yeah, I had an issue with a 1950 Motorola TV set with rubber wiring. For some reason, the vertical oscillator was at one end and the vertical amplifier was at another end, and it was connected with coax. Anyway, all I got was a flat line. I couldn't figure out what the heck was going on. And finally, I figured it out. That coax had shorted. The rubber inside that coax
Really?
cracked so bad that the center conductor shorted to the outer sheath somewhere along the line. But it took me a while to figure that out. Why in the heck is this thing zero here?
It's very rare when you see a coax fail.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that was the problem, you know. You would have never guessed. So it took a while to figure out. But then not many coaxes have rubber insulation in the middle either. At least that I'm familiar with. I see Mark's got some wind there in Hawaii also.
Yeah. Aloha.
Yeah, it's blowing pretty good here too.
Yeah, I'm up here at South at a little cabin at South Point, and yeah, it's blowing out here today.
But no snow or rain, huh?
No, that doesn't happen here. It's 3,100 feet. It's not high enough to get that cold. But it has got down into the 50s at night, though.
Wow. I guess I've never been there that time of the year.
Well, that's at this elevation. It's a lot cooler.
Oh, sure, elevation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I mean it snows in Mauna Kea in the summertime.
Yeah, I've been there, done that.
Yeah.
Not prepared for it, you know. And you know, you go up so many thousand feet so quickly.
Yeah.
You know, you don't do that here. You're already partway up, and then you
Yeah.
slowly go up. Mauna Kea, wow, you just,
Yeah, that's at 14,000. So
yeah, no time at all. You're up there.
There's no snow on the mountain though, is there?
probably not, but
Okay,
it's not unusual for it to get snow in the middle of summer. You know, when a cold front goes through. So at that elevation, you know, it's
yeah.
Is that the southernmost point of the US?
yeah. In fact, maybe you can see it there in the distance there. I don't know if you can see if it's clear enough to see it out there right now, but South Point's right. It's behind me anyway.
I guess they considered launching the space program there in the 60s. But they decided it would take so long to get the things there on the boat from Huntsville.
Yeah, and I think there was a company that was talking about to want to do some private stuff here a few years ago, but I think they got some negative response from the local people or whatever, and they didn't pursue it.
That was some balloon guys that were based in Oregon, actually. I forgot the name of it, but they had a place in Tillamook.
Well, this was actually, I think there was a proposal to do some sort of launch of some sort of rockets and stuff like that.
Okay, these guys were high altitude balloons. It was called the Johnson Center or something like that. It was named for an Oregon senator who funded it originally. It was a lot cheaper than ballistics. They could take stuff up, small payloads on balloons to like 150,000 feet or something.
Huh.
Yeah, so the idea was to go up there and across the United States then, was that it?
Well, that was just as an alternative to Cape Canaveral because,
Oh.
it takes less energy the farther south you are. And so,
Does
They-
it
but-
matter? Does it matter with
No.
the balloon? No? I mean,
no, I was just talking about the real space program,
Yeah.
the Apollo and all that. They were considering doing it in South Point instead of in Cape Canaveral.
So you say it takes less energy to launch from the near the equator?
Yeah, because you get the rotational velocity from the Earth.
Okay.
And of course, you always launch in that direction too. Except for the military stuff goes north-south. Because you can't see, if you go north-south, you get to see more of the Earth every day.
Yeah.
mm.
So anybody following the latest Mars mission?
On and off.
That I thought it was very interesting. They're talking about, what is it, Endeavor? That the roving vehicle, it moves along at a whopping 1/10 of a mile per hour. And then they talked about the little helicopter that they put on board. And of course, you know, you've probably heard in the news that they successfully flew it.
Yeah,
And but it's all pre-programmed when there's a flight, because they can't, it's so far away. And on top of that, I guess it's turning about 3 or 4 times, the rotors are turning 3 or 4 times faster than they'd have to turn on Earth, because the atmosphere is so thin there.
right.
So they figured all that into it to make it fly.
Yep.
And now I guess they were going to leave the helicopter behind and just send the rover off, but now they're sending them both together. It sounds like, I mean, they took pictures. I mean, you know, sending the pictures back to Earth and stuff. It's really neat stuff to see that.
Really interesting what they're doing.
Yeah, it is. It's fascinating. I mean, the guys who developed that helicopter, I mean, some private company developed that thing, and it's so light. It's incredible.
So a gal actually runs that program.
What does?
A gal. I can't remember her name.
Oh,
She
yeah,
runs-
yeah.
She runs
I
the
can't
program.
either. They interviewed her on the little thing I saw on it. It's just really
So the-
incredible.
So the Chinese put one down 1,000 miles away.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether they'll find each other. 1,000 miles at 1/10 of a mile an hour, that's going to take a while.
Let's calculate that, shall we?
And I don't think it can run 1/10 of a mile an hour continuously. It's got to stop and recharge.
They use the plutonium, right?
I think
I don't know.
yeah, it's the radioactive core. They use thermal piles. I think the Chinese one though is photovoltaic. I mean, it looked like it had just a pile of solar cells on top of it.
So they sent back pictures from the Chinese one.
Where did I see it? I don't recall where I saw it. Was it? It might have been on LinkedIn. I don't know if anybody else is on LinkedIn, but
I used to be.
Hmm.
Well, it'd be very fascinating. I'm wondering if, you know, the success of this little helicopter thing is going to breed something even better next time they send something up.
Well, I think it's this, it's like a proof of concept, and it's amazing they got it to work the first time. And so their engineering was correct. And I think the idea is that they can eventually look forward to having, you know, scout around for things to look at stuff in the future with a more advanced setup. That's I think that's the idea.
Isn't the next one supposed to go pick up the core samples? This one.
Well, that's they're supposed to, European and the US are going to do some sort of joint mission to recover them. This one's going to take the samples and seal them. And I think the idea is, you know, if there's any contamination, if you leave them and wait, and not seal them, I think that's part of the idea, is that right now nothing's been contaminated. So get the samples, get them sealed, and then you can kind of check for if you did anything wrong next time when you pick them up.
Yeah, pick them up and shoot them back to the earth, right?
Yeah. So do you know when they plan to send another probe up there to recover the samples?
I think it was like 26, wasn't it?
Something
Yeah,
like that.
something like that,
Yeah, something like that.
5 years out.
Yeah, that's quite a ways.
Mhm.
And the samples could contaminate themselves just sitting there all that.
So well, they could, but they're gonna be sealed, so. I
And they
think
gotta
that's the
find them. They're
idea.
gonna be covered in Mars dust too, right?
Yeah, they have to find the
They have to
crap.
find them because it just drops
Well,
them.
I think their idea is they're gonna decide someplace to leave them that they figure they can recover them, or they can keep them stored in the rover.
Well, I think
Uh,
they're just dropping them. I think they're just dropping them on the
Well,
ground.
no, they can store them there inside the rover. They can leave them stored in the rover too. So
Oh.
they have that option. That's what I understand.
Maybe
Yeah,
they're, maybe they're,
Electric test.
maybe they're geocaching them.
There you go. Make an Easter egg hunt.
Anyway, I got a little project to do out here. See, I don't know if you can see my antenna over there. The tower's cranked down. I got a connector to put on yet. I had to go get me a torch. I didn't have one up here. And I just thought I'd check in and say hi and see what's going on. And I'm gonna go back before it gets dark in here another hour and get my antenna back online there and stuff. So
Mark, it's good to see you. Thanks for checking in.
yeah, because I missed last time, so I just want to check in and say hi.
Yeah, good enough.
I see Warren's on there, and so you guys take care.
Okay,
Yeah,
you too, Mark.
Mark.
You too.
Bye, Mark.
All right, see ya.
Well, I think it's about 8 o'clock. I think I may bail too, guys.
Thanks, Lyles.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Everybody
Yeah,
have
I
a good
think-
evening.
You too, Isles. Bye for now.
I think I'll do the same.
so
Take care,
Pat,
everybody.
Yeah,
what time, I saw the auction starting at 9 on Saturday. You have any, it'd be okay to get there a little bit early to view physically some of the stuff?
well, sure. Actually, if you get there early, you can help, set it up.
Oh, no problem with that.
Well, it's like everything else. We're gonna need some people to help set up, and then when it's all done, we have to have people help, put the tables and chairs back and, clean up all the junk and that kind of stuff. But, if you can come by earlier on Saturday, that'd be great.
Okay, I'll see. Probably not too early. I'll, between
No
8 and
earlier.
8:30.
I'm thinking about leaving about 7:25 or so, so we'll be there at 8.
Okay, I was planning to be there sometime between 8 and 8:30 to look things over, so I can help whatever you need.
Mhm. We actually, depending on how much stuff we have to take, we may take 2 trips. We might drop stuff off Friday night if we can't get it all in one load, and then the next morning, bring the rest of it. So yeah, no problem. So didn't anyone get anything from this sale last Saturday? Am I the only one that got something?
I guess I couldn't make it last Saturday, so I missed out.
Even though we had a lot of open vendor tables because they didn't show, we still had, I think I had a lot of fun. I think a lot of people enjoyed the just the meeting and, being able to talk to one another. But
It was
there were-
good seeing everybody again. It was really good seeing everybody again.
In person.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought I got some pretty good deals and the auction was exceptional.
Incredible deals. I got those TOs. And I got some Japanese pocket radios too. There's a few of them there.
How old?
What is it? They're 50s.
Did
Really?
you get those
Late
from
50s.
Mike McCrow?
I got 2 from Mike McCrow and then 1 from another guy. And then there was a little Walkman downstairs too from the 90s. I thought that was cool.
Oh,
I got a really good microphone at the telescopic desk podium microphone. I haven't tested
Really?
it.
That's cool.
I know
got
you,
that.
you
I
got that for,
from one of the vendors.
you got that for a steal.
Didn't you
Oh,
want
do
a lot
you-
of money for that to start with?
Yeah,
You'll
I
have
did.
to ask the vendor. The vendor, he was sworn to secrecy on that deal.
Oh. I looked at it, but I thought it was too expensive.
Well, he looked kind of poor. He didn't look like he needed a
You needed to move stuff, huh?
he needed some new clothes. So I figured I'd have pity on him.
There you go.
And then he went and spent it all over there at the buying
Charity, huh?
himself one of them steak sandwiches.
Hey, Pat, I think it's a great idea that we're going to have Arlene's at the picnic. And I think that would be a great idea, by the way.
Yeah. But
We
it's not
COVID.
free. It's not free.
Right.
We're gonna have to pay for it. Like we did at the, at the last spring sale.
Right, but it's going to be more COVID friendly or COVID okay for everybody.
Yeah. She's a licensed, kitchen
Vendor.
and stuff, so it should be a lot safer. Because, I do fear that if we make it a potluck, I don't know, a lot of people might kind of either not show up or they might not eat anything because, I mean, how can you guarantee that everyone bringing anything it's safe?
You just have to get it from the stores, Costco's and stuff like that. You could bring chicken you get at the stores.
So
And then it
Pat,
probably-
wasn't the last picnic, didn't the club pay for the food at that one?
Yeah. Okay, 2 years ago, we had Arlene come out. We paid for 100 meals, and we only used 67. So we had 33 extra meals that we paid for, but we had to just take it home. So I think that ended up going home to various people. So that was a mistake. And then last year we had a potluck, and you get people complaining because they want to go buy radios and they're stuck cooking because no one wants to cook. They all want to go buy radios. So to kind of make it maybe more fair for everyone, we'll just have it so that Arlene will come in again. She'll sell her stuff, and we'll just buy hot dog, hamburgers, and drinks and chips from her. But there is a threshold. She's going to come up with the minimum number of meals that she can sell to make it worth her while, because she has to drive that van and park it there. And plus she has to pay her people. So we may have to guarantee her like X number of meals. So if she doesn't sell that many meals, then the club will have to fork up the money.
Well, maybe it'll, if you just take what we bought or what you used last time, and I guess use that as a base and see what she comes up with. Hopefully they'll meet.
Mhm. Yeah, but I tell you though, I'm really disappointed. So many people are still staying home for like the mini sale and the auctions we've been having, and I'm afraid that the picnic is going to be the same thing. We're just not going to have as many people, so it's a crapshoot really, and we're going to have to probably guesstimate how many people we think will come and maybe go on the low side.
So what are you thinking?
Well, like I say, it depends on what her minimal number of meals is. And, it might be 50 and we'll just have to hope that 50 people show up and buy meals.
Well, maybe you should send out a little questionnaire, see if, on the email to club members and ask them to respond, would you plan on coming?
Like an
Sure.
RSVP?
Yeah, do an RSVP type of a deal and see how many you can get.
Good idea.
And then there's still guesswork, but maybe not as much.
Well, the club still has the option of saying, okay, we're just going to go ahead and buy X number of meals and the club will pay for it. And then everyone gets to eat for free. I mean, we still have that option.
That's true. But then again, if you find out that you've only got about 20 or 30 people who for sure want to show up, we might have to rethink this.
Then they'd have a feast, right?
Yeah, we'd have a-
Has any of this group been around long enough to remember when we had the meetings over at Frank and Mary's in the Rosadas in Multnomah Village?
Yeah, I remember that.
Well,
We
we
got
had-
kicked out because of Speed Fleshaw, I think.
Is that what it
Because he
was?
said- Yeah, he said something derogatory about the Rosada's wife. And
Well,
right
I
during the
thought,
meeting,
I thought what happened, of course, you never know about these things. There was, Mary would cook the Christmas meals for us, and we'd have our Christmas thing there.
yeah,
And so one year, I think it was 93 or something like that, there was a huge ice storm. And so nobody showed up, but she had cooked all this food. And so the club had to pay for it. And I think, Speed was upset about that. And Mary, of course, wanted her money and stuff. So I think that might have been something to do with that.
I think you're right. Now that jars my memory. Yeah.
So we got kicked out. Frank had that building full of stratospheres and all kinds of stuff. I only got to see upstairs once, but he had like 2 stratospheres downstairs, and he claimed to know where all the stratospheres were in the whole world. And I wouldn't be
Really?
surprised if it was true or not. He had some
it's
great
ki-
stuff.
That's kind of too bad because, when you pass out the California Historical Radio Society, their little monthly thing, it looks like they own their own building. And I thought, man, that is one rich radio society down there if they can afford their own building. And if we could have stayed with the Rosadas, maybe we could have done something similar.
Yeah, now that's a Lucky Lab pub. That
Oh, is
building is. Yeah.
Oh,
But he had some great stuff, though.
yeah.
Is it still open? I know, didn't one of those close?
I don't know. I haven't been over there in a few years, but
Yeah.
it was fun to go in there and, look around. They didn't let you go upstairs. But Frank and Mary had the downstairs set up to where they could live there when they were in town, and they came up from LA and stuff. I don't know what all they did, but it was just their kind of place to stay and a place to keep all their radios. But I think it's a 3-story building. Certainly, I got to go upstairs one time, and it was just chock full of just giant stuff. Big consoles and things that could record. You cut your own records on them and stuff like that.
Wow.
It was some amazing stuff. So it was too bad the way it ended up. Because
It
we
is.
used to meet there downstairs, for a couple of years at least.
Are you saying that the radios are still upstairs now?
No, I can't believe that's true. I'm just saying the Lucky Lab doesn't use the upstairs is all I'm saying. When I went over there to the pub, it was all downstairs. But no, I'm sure they sold the building and took all the stuff somewhere else. I don't know where, but I was talking to someone at the swap meet on Saturday who lived in Multnomah Village, and she knew of them. In fact, it was really interesting. She had lived there so long. Apparently they had owned some other property in Multnomah Village at some point too, so.
Well, I'm gonna check out. Hope to see some of you guys Saturday at the swap meet.
Well, but it's not this Saturday, it's the 29th.
Oh, that's okay. I thought the one down south was the 29th, but this,
No,
okay,
ours is the 29th and McCracken is June 5th. It's the first
Okay.
Saturday of the month.
okay, I read that wrong then. Okay, the 29th. All right, 2 weeks,
Well, a week and a half.
week and a half. That's a couple days.
Well, I just checked, the Lucky Lab is back open. They closed during COVID, so.
I see, yeah, it was a great, it was an okay pub, in a good location, but it was just funny, somebody asked me to go over there and I was like, oh yeah, I've been in here before. So did you get rid of those radios, Pat?
Which radios?
The ones I brought back to you?
Oh, no, they're still in the back of the car, but I'm going to go visit Jeff Quay on Friday and drop him off to him, and then he's gonna, either try to fix that one with a patch that you mentioned to him,
Yeah,
or, well, whatever, but he's gonna take the rest of them back up to the Jacobsons.
I see, good.
So what I'm looking for is, oh, I know, I was gonna ask you, is that a Loctol or an octal tube socket?
It's a Loctol.
Okay, so all we need is a Loctol extension, so to speak. In other words, something where you could plug into an Loctol tube socket, and then it has, the pins there, so you could do some soldering between.
Yeah.
like
That would work. That would work.
Yeah, but I don't know. Have anyone seen something like that? Kind of like a tube socket extender?
I mean, it seems like I've seen something like that for,
Testing,
yeah. So you
Like where
put
you
your
could put your
scope on
probes
something,
on.
yeah.
yeah, where you can put your
yeah.
probes on. Oh, that would be perfect. All you do is stuff that in there and then go, I forgot what you said, 4 to 7 or something like that. Put it.
Yeah, it's 4 to 5, but yeah.
4 to 5. Put in a microfarad. Okay. What was the microfarad rating?
It's a 750 puff cap, yeah.
Okay. That would be great, because if we can do that and try it out, it might work perfect.
Yeah, Blake suggested that, you might be able to just take the mounting knob, the mounting nut off the front of the thing, and then you could move it around enough to get under it, and like do laparoscopic surgery on it, basically.
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
I don't
kinda
know.
Yeah,
He said it was one of the hardest radios to work on.
Oh, great.
I was like, yeah, no kidding.
Great. Well, we appreciate your efforts on restoring that one and the airline as well.
Yeah, the airline was pretty cool.
Yeah. I like the idea of not touching that but just putting a tube extender on top and trying to patch that way, because they're not going to know any difference. It'll just stick up maybe what, an inch taller.
Yeah, it's got to be a really special thing because those Loctals have that funny pin in the middle. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, who knows if anything was ever made to do that, but I'll look around.
I think I've seen something where you can plug in a tube into the socket, and that has leads on all the pins, so you can test, values.
Yeah.
While the radio's in operation. I think I've seen something like that somewhere.
I've seen something similar to that with 7-pin miniatures that Motorola made in the 50s. They made those, they're rectangles, but only about 1.5 inches deep. Those radios that they made in the 50s with like a antenna that turns on top that are Motorola. Well, they made a bunch of different versions of them, tube versions, and then finally made them into transistors. And they had printed circuit boards, but they had some tubes where they had built up the circuits on between the circuit board and the tube in a socket. So it was like an extender in between. It had components in there. It was some kind of thing that was, developed by the military or, for the military or something. But I have one of those Motorola sets that looks like that. And it's really weird looking because it's, it's got a tube socket and this thing plugs into it. It's probably, 3/4 of an inch long. And then the tube plugs into that. And there's resistors and capacitors in between. So if we had something like that for a Loctol, that would be great.
Cool.
But yeah, it was the first FM with the
I
new
saw
band.
something like that recently at a ham fair that looked like crystal ovens that were on a Loctol base.
Yeah, maybe something like that would work. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I picked up a couple of them because they were shiny. No other good reason. and kind of unique. I think they were selling them for what, $1 each or something like that. But it kind of occurs to me that if you needed that Lockville base to build something on or extend a tube, that you could use something like that. But we also used in the military, and that's been 50 years ago, tube extenders so that you could measure the voltages on the live circuit without turning everything upside down.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what we're looking for.
Yeah, just give you a test point alongside each of the pins on the tube, and they were 7-pin, 9-pin, and Lockville, as I recall. They still see them on eBay sometimes if you search for tube extender.
Yeah, I mean, just so you don't know, so you know what's going on here, we had this Philco set that was AM/FM like 1946, and it was the first FM new band radio that Philco made, and the chassis is built so that the converter tube is on top of the band switch, and so there's a missing an open 750 puff cap that couples. It's it's 2 triodes. One is the oscillator, one's the mixer, and so that couples the cathodes between the oscillator and the mixer. The 750 puff cap. Well, it's buried underneath that band switch, and to get the band switch out, I mean, not to mention there's all kind of wires and everything, but there's like some stuff riveted in behind it, so you couldn't pull it back. It's just a disaster to try to imagine getting it all apart and putting it back together without tearing up something. So that's why we're looking at some alternative solution.
Mine,
yeah.
do you remember the tube number? Was it like a 7C6 or something like that? Or
I think it's a 7F7. It's a dual triode, but I can't remember. It starts with a 7, obviously.
okay, no big. Yeah, it's just
Yeah. It's a high frequency capable tube. It's a little short guy. Well, I'm going to sign off, guys. Thanks a lot. Enjoyed it.
okay. See you guys next week.
Hey, Pat, about the picnic,
Yeah. What about it?
some churches and nonprofit clubs and stuff have been using eventbrite.com for free ticketing. So people can, purchase a free ticket and then they show up at the event, but the free ticketing lets you figure out your attendance ahead of time, right? So you can say everyone, in the club and on the mail list and stuff, go to the Eventbrite and here's the address and get a free ticket. That would give you a count ahead of time.
So it's EVENTBRIGHT
I believe so, yeah.
.com.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a free software thing. We could do that and send it out, kind of.
Yeah, I think as long as your event is free, then you don't have to pay for the product.
I might want to just go ahead and try just spamming everyone on, in NW versus Google groups. I could try that. You know how the people are, anything new that's like, we got this new thing, I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Well, during this pandemic, a lot of churches went through that. They could only do 25% capacity. And so a number of them that I know of actually used Eventbrite. And, they would just cap the event at, 25% of their sanctuary kind of thing. 100 out of 400 can get tickets. And tickets go on sale for free on Tuesday at noon. And if you don't get your ticket by Tuesday at 1, you're not going to get there, right? So,
Well, this is an outdoor event, so I don't know, we may have less restrictions because we can really open it up.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, it sounds like your main restriction is the food thing and getting that squared away otherwise. But since we're a nonprofit and since they have a free kind of option thing on creating their events, you might check it out and think about it.
Okay, I appreciate that.
I don't think you need to go as far as scanning people's ticket or anything like that when they get there. But if you have people pre-registering through something, then, you at least have an idea of what potential attendance is.
Mhm.
Spamming the mail list and everybody writing back to the mail list might get kind of messy. And I don't know how many people actually participate in the mail list.
Yeah, I mean, quite a few. The default is we just, when anyone signs up to the club, we just add their email to the groups, Google groups, so they could turn it off or, so hard to say. So Mark, did you get anything at the show?
I did not. Nope. I gave a few things away. I'm going the other way right now. I'm emptying my garage.
You got an old multi-tester.
Oh yeah,
battery
that's right.
operated.
Yeah, I did. It was for
Battery
free
operated.
outside. Some guy walked up to me and gave it to me. Takes weird batteries. I haven't figured out what to do about that. I might put a power thing on the side and modify a wall wart for it.
That'd work.
Make like a DC voltage doubler from a 15-volt wall wart or something. I should do that from my Simpson and triplet meters too. Just make a power rail from my bench meters. Of course, then they won't be worth anything in the future as antiques if I drill holes in them and stuff.
Yeah, I wouldn't drill holes in that. You could just bypass. You could let it hang out.
Yeah. Leave the battery cover off.
Mark, the 30-volt batteries?
I don't remember what that was, but I took it off and looked at it and thought, oh, that is a really odd battery voltage. I don't think it was 30 volts. It was something else. Some odd ever-ready number. The Simpson stuff I have takes 30 volts. But what I did with those is I just put 3 9-volts together and put them there and it works fine. The ohm meter adjusts enough on the 0 set to work. So 27 does it. And 9-volt batteries are all 9.4 or 9.5 anyway. So it's close to 30.
What you got there, Pat?
Well, I had to run out to the garage and show off. I got this from Dan Olson. He always supplies me with my fix for a plastic radio. So this is like a little Emerson, but it's a white Plascon. So it's a solid white. It's in pretty decent shape. It's still kind of nice and shiny yet. So I got that for $10. So I thought that was a great find.
That's cool.
Yeah. when I started this club many, many years ago, all the old curmudgeons wouldn't sell me their wood radios, so I was left to buy nothing but plastics because no one wanted plastics back in those days. So I ended up buying, plenty of those, and that's been kind of my main collection is getting these. But like I say, when I first started, the wood radios were actually it was the battery sets were real popular and expensive and rare. And then came the wood sets, and no one at that time back in the 90s, well, I mean, there were, but they weren't as popular as they are today. So they would gladly sell me their plastic sets. So that's kind of how I got hooked on buying radios, is all these plastic ones. So now all the crystal and the battery sets have kind of gone down in value, I guess. And I think the wood ones are holding out okay. But from what I've understand, what I've seen out there, a lot of the plastic sets are actually increasing in price. Especially if they're like the colorful plastic, solid plastic colors, pink, blue, green.
Catalin.
What?
The Catalin ones have gone crazy, right?
Well, they used to, I don't know if they're up or down now, but I've noticed like if you go to that place called Retro Radio Farm.
Uh-huh. Yeah. He's doing a lot of restoration.
Yeah, he sells all these plastic radios and he gets, I would consider him obscene prices for plastic sets. I mean, plastic clock radios that we used to buy for like $10 each, they're selling for $200. And I just can't believe it. I'm not sure who buys all these sets. If you look on Radio Attic and I look at all the radios and just regular plain radios, that we see, I mean, they'll sell for $200, $300, $400. I'm going, well, why? But they're selling them and I don't quite get it.
It's just a certain brands though, right? I mean, certain brands seem to really jump out, right?
Oh, no, you go
Bodies.
look at the Radio Attic and just go through all their sold radios and look at all the sellers. I mean, they're asking a fortune for even what I consider common stuff, just regular things. You go look at their stuff and a lot of just those standard Philco, kind of boxy wood radios from the 40s. I mean, they're asking big money for a lot of those, maybe a couple $100. Of course, they're always all restored and whatnot, but I don't understand who's buying them all. I mean, I don't think it's radio collectors because I don't think radio collectors would pay that much for some of this stuff.
So you think they're decor people? Don't we just want the one wood radio to show off their decor?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. It just seems silly to pay that much, I think, for a radio when if you join the club and start collecting, I mean, what one of the collectors out there doesn't have a lot of radios in their collection?
Hey, Pat,
Yo,
I bought a 1948 Motorola vertical grill Catalin radio. It's in an antique shop in my town. This is about a year and a half ago. In terrible shape, all oxidized. It looked like it was a brownish red oxidation. The power cord was rotted. It was in bad shape, but I looked at it and it got down to $50 and I bought it. Actually, when I looked at it, I was getting a haircut and I didn't have an appointment. And then they said, well, I got to come back in about 30, 40 minutes. We can cut your hair. So I went down to the antique shop and I see it. And I'm like, I'm not sure about that. And then I went back and sat down and waited 10 minutes for my haircut. And I got on my phone and I did a little search on the internet and I realized, holy crap, these things go for a lot of money. So to make a long story short, that $50 radio was sold for $3,000 and it was bought from a guy from Ireland who was an art collector, art technology collector. So he looked at that as old technology, but as a work of art. And I spent, Novus 2 plastic polish. I went through 2 bottles of that and I spent about 12 to 14 hours hand rubbing that Catalin case to take that brownish red oxidation to a beautiful marbled green, emerald green.
Wow.
Because Catalin, when it's exposed to UV light, over the years, it actually changes color. But it's a surface layer. So if you can rub that down, you got to be careful. Some people talk about using a sander or something, but you can't overdo it. Because if you go too deep on a Catalin, you're going to get down to a really bright color. And then if you don't do that evenly, and then again, you don't want to, they can get fragile, so you don't want to get the case too thin. So Novus #2 plastic polish, it takes a while, and every time you rub it, you can see all the stuff coming off on your rag. But that way it's done evenly. So if you see a spot that doesn't look as bright as the other spot, you can work on it with your hand. And I recapped it, put a new power cord on it, a couple tube replacements. So I put like $75 into it and had it up on eBay for $3,000. And it was up there for a few weeks, and the guy was trying to, knock me down. I had it listed for $3,500 based on what I researched on the internet. And then I finally realized, I said, I don't want this thing to be on here for years and years. I only got $150 into it. So I accepted his offer of $3,000 and went off to Ireland.
Wow.
So some of those are very desirable. Motorola made 3. They made a vertical grill, an S grill, and a circle grill, all in the same time period. And like collectors, if you get one, they like to get the other 2. So they like to have the whole set of them. But yeah, some of those, there's a website that gives you Catalin prices. Although I don't think, apparently 8-10 years ago, the market was crazy. Some of these things were going for $10,000, $11,000. But I noticed over the past couple of years, the Catalin radio prices seem to have come down a bit.
Do you have a picture of it, Jeff, before you polished it and after?
Yeah, I do.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'll email it to you.
Yeah, or
You have to
email
dig
to
it
the
up on my-
group.
Oh, it came out beautiful. And then when I took pictures for eBay, I put it outside in my backyard by my waterfall. Had the sunlight on it, and it just, with a high resolution camera, it's almost like it's 3D. That Catalin's really neat material.
It didn't crack at all? You didn't have any cracks
There was
at all?
no cracks on it at all. It's
Wow, that's amazing.
Yep.
And of course, you know that you're not supposed to breathe that dust in. Of course, with Novus, it's liquid polish, so you probably didn't breathe any in, but apparently that dust is, carcinogenic.
Catalin dust?
That's what I've heard. I heard that you're not supposed to breathe the dust if you're sanding a Catalin radio.
Oh, geez. You should have told me that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
If there was dust coming off that, I got it for sure. But another thing too is they had it was missing though, but those sets had a piece of asbestos glued on the top because those tubes get really hot, and some of them get discolorations on the top from the tube. So they had previously there was asbestos on there. But it just goes to show now my wife's not too critical when we stop at an antique shop and I look at a radio or something. It's like, well, remember that one I bought for $50? We got some money for it. So it's kind of like now I have
only if you shared some of that profit with her.
Oh yeah, she got some of it, sure. But I wasn't even in the Catalin radio. It's just that I saw it and I realized it was Catalin, and I just took a picture of it with my phone. And then while I'm waiting in the barbershop, I just started doing a little searching, and I realized, holy crap, this thing's definitely worth more than $50. So I think I'll go back and get it.
So how do you know for sure that it was Catalin? I mean, you knew that it was the swirls?
The swirls, and then if you flip the radio and look at the bottom that never sees sunlight or any type of light, I could see the green color, and I was kind of confused. I'm like, what the heck? Why is this green down here? And then on the inside where the chassis is, that's more of a green color. But I really didn't know much about Catalin radios, but yeah, you could tell it was Catalin just because it has that 3D dimension. Like the swirls, you can see through it.
Yeah.
It's not like plastic where it's just one layer.
But there is solid colored Catalin, right? I mean, there's.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
So I was wondering about those because some of those, they the cattle ones that I look at look like plastic a lot of times. They look like and
Yeah,
it's-
but if you buff them and get them polished and get that oxidation off, it just comes to life. Because the ones that have been sitting around for years and years, they're going to have that oxidation on it, and they're just going to look dull. And sometimes you're not even sure what the color is until you start polishing. I had no idea that was going to come up that kind of green.
really, that's amazing. I think Pat ran to get his Catalin.
Oh, okay.
He's got one that's got some cracks in it that he's trying to fix, and Catalin doesn't want to glue together very well.
There's people that do those repairs, and it's like $75 to $100 per nick crack. I mean, it's expensive to repair Catalin, and you have to be an artist. I mean, you have to really know how to match it.
Hey,
What
hey,
you got?
Jeff, you have to be careful though. There are plastics that are very Catalin-like. And so you look at this guy here and, don't pay hundreds of dollars, something like this, but can you kind of see the,
Yeah, swirls.
yeah. So this is a model, 422 GE. This is just a regular, plastic radio, but they've done some nice color and swirl. So I had a bunch of plastic radios and I was like off work because I got fired. And so I was sitting there and what I was going to do. So I ended up taking a bunch of these plastic radios and just started polishing, but it came out pretty good. So just to let you know, if it's swirly, it doesn't mean it's Catalin. So, don't, if you find something like this, don't pay, hundreds of dollars thinking it's worth thousands, because there are some plastic radios that
Look like
mimic the Catalin's color and swirling.
Right. Now to remember, the radio was in 1941 because after World War II, they stopped making Catalin because they had designed plastics. And my understanding with Catalin is they had like a 30-40% failure rate coming out of the molds. Like they get imperfections, bubbles, and things like that.
Yeah.
That's
Wow.
why it wasn't a great process because they'd pour it into a mold. And like I said, 3 out of 10 would have to be rejects because there was some type of imperfection or bubble.
Wow.
So when the plastics came around, it was so much, so much cheaper to make and, better production.
So Pat, is that painted on there or is that actually the plastic?
No, it's actually plastic. It's a swirled plastic.
Swirl plastic. Oh,
Yeah, no, it's not painted.
So whenever they mix that resin together, they just swirled it and then they
Yeah,
poured it in the mold.
Yeah, I guess if you can see the edge down here. I don't know if you can see it right there, but along this edge here,
Yeah.
you can, it's 3D and this is the back bottom side. So, it's not been polished or anything. That's the actual plastic color is, that's what it looks like on the bottom, underneath, on the side, and even inside. It's, it's all swirly.
Right.
So I really favor these, because obviously I'm not going to be able to afford your $3,000 Catalin radio, but it's still kind of pretty. But yeah, they did make Catalin in solid colors. I think your Gerard Commander ones, they were like solid red, solid orange. There are other ones too that when they made the Catalin radios, they were solid colors,
Right.
and not swirly.
Also, you see a lot of Catalin in the older silverware. You had
Really?
like a nice silverware or a carving set, like a turkey carving set, the handles, that butterscotch color. That butterscotch colored handles, that's Catalin. They made combs, they made handles for knives and silverware, hair barrettes. Yeah, if you go to antique shops, you can see different Catalin items and they ask a lot of money for them. I mean, some of these Catalin knobs, they're asking $150, $250 for a knob.
Well, Jeff, I thought you weren't a Catalin expert.
I became one with this radio.
So
But
how
I
much are
wouldn't-
the, knives and forks and all that stuff? Are they worth
No,
thousands
it's
of
not that-
dollars?
Not that much, no.
Oh,
But you know what I'm talking about? Like when you were a kid, probably in your family, you probably had those knives that had like the white or butterscotch colored handles. Looks like plastic, but it was kind of had that 3 dimension to it. Like at 30, no, didn't have that.
no, we weren't rich enough.
No. But you see that a lot. If you go in an antique shop and stuff, you'll see a lot of kitchenware and stuff with utensils that have that butterscotch handle. And the butterscotch is not the original color. Original color was ivory or white, but over time it changes to that butterscotch color.
Will they polish out?
No, well, you have to go pretty far down to get back to. I don't know if you get back to the white on those. Yeah, the more you rub them, the lighter they get, but they just won't come back to white. But another thing with Catalin is if you take a white cloth or white t-shirt and you put on some Novus and you rub it for a couple rubs and you look at it, you're going to see a lot of color on that t-shirt. Whereas plastic, if you rub it, you're just going to get really whatever dirt or oxidation, but you're not going to get the color of the plastic coming off.
Oh, yeah, I've
So
noticed
is that a
that.
good way to test, huh?
Right. And also when you rub Catalin and then if you smell the cloth, I don't know how to describe it, but there's a definite smell. Camphor, I think is what they call it. It's kind of you'll know it. It has a unique smell to it when you rub it. So they were saying that was a test you could do if you're in an antique shop and you're not sure if it's Catalin or not. You could rub it on a white paper towel or white napkin and just rub. And if the color comes off on the napkin, it's going to be Catalin. I got a good deal at the our last radio swap meet. Mike McCrow, or his wife, was manning his table, and there was a Sony transistor radio and another GE radio, and she says, $1 each. I'm like, $1 each, I'll grab them. The Sony was I really knew nothing about it. I know Sony made some really good radios, but I also know Sony made some bad stuff too, but I had no idea what I bought, but I did a little research on it. It's a 1967 9 transistor, super sensitive. Got really high marks for being a real sensitive radio, great for DXing. And yeah, so I told her restore that. I had replaced 9 electrolytic capacitors that were kind of a nightmare to get to and take off, but I got all those replaced and put it all back together, and it sounds amazing. I mean, it just picks up everything, and the tone is really nice. So that was a nice deal for $1. And then I got I don't know who the member was, but he had a Westinghouse portable AM shortwave radio in a leather case, pretty big, like a lunchbox size, $5. And I didn't even take it out of the case. I just figured, it was in the case. I'm thinking, well, if it's in the case, it probably got protected. Yeah, I took that thing out of the leather case and it's just flawless. Because whoever had it just kept it in the case the entire time they used it. And there's no scratches or cracks or anything. And that plays pretty nice too.
So Jeff, do you know anyone who does Catalin Repair?
No, but there's a guy, he's online. A lot of people send them their radios if they have a really expensive radio. He does repairs. He's like an expert at matching. But I think you were gone when I was mentioning this, but if you have a crack or a nick that you need repaired, I think he charges like no less than $75 up to like $150 for each imperfection. So if you got a couple of nicks and cracks, and you could be $300-400 in repairs. But then you got to look at it if that's going to, that could be warranted for a very expensive radio. There's people that make the reproduction knobs and the grills for those out of Catalin. And there's another guy that makes reproduction that looks like Catalin, but it's plastic. But that's going to probably take down the value of the radio if you have something that's, you know, replacement. But yeah, if you go online, there's, I forget the name of the website, but it's a Catalin radio price guide. And it lists all the radios and it gives what the prices are, although those prices are really high. Like the radio that I sold, it said for a mint radio, and mine wasn't mint, but it didn't have any cracks. I'd say, you know, on a scale 1 to 10, I had like an 8.5 or 9. And they said for a 10, they said $4,500 for that radio. And I'm like, 45, that's why I put 35, thinking, okay, I'm going to sell it. But no, it was on eBay for a while. And then I'm thinking, you know, there's a very niche market here for who's going to drop, you know, $3,000 for a radio. And it turned out the guy was an art technology dealer in Ireland. So I don't sell international on eBay. And I remember he said he's from Ireland. I said, well, I don't ship to Ireland. And he just kept, you know, for the next week or so, he just kept emailing me back, you know, would you reconsider? Would you reconsider? And I just figure, well, I'll just make sure it's insured and send it off and no problem.
Well, I've heard that story a lot. What is the issue of selling internationally to anyone? Is there a problem with that?
I don't like to do it because if there's any type of claim or anything, or if it gets lost, I mean, you insure through the Postal Service, but some of these, like I know Italy's really, there's like a alert for Italy. They recommend not, like people that sell radios and stuff like that, to stay away from Italy because there's a lot of fraud. It's actually through the Italian post office or something, I heard, that a lot of parcels go missing. And it's like from the people that work in the post office. I think Italy, Spain, and there's another country that's, but for me, it's just, I'd rather just keep it in the US, but I made an exception on this one.
Have you ever tried that global, the eBay Global?
Yeah.
eBay Global Shipping, where, you know, you're only responsible to get it to Kentucky. And then once it's at Kentucky, it goes off and then they take over it.
Yeah, that's kind of what I did with this one. It went to New Jersey to a shipper that, in other words, I just had to get it to the exporter, I guess you call it, in New Jersey.
Right.
And once he gets it, then the responsibility is on him to get it to Ireland. So that's, yeah, it's not like the package just went directly to Ireland. It would actually, my responsibility ended in New Jersey. So that made me feel better about doing it that way.
So this is a Sentinel. It's kind of that cranberry red, swirly orange kind of thing.
Yeah.
So the reason I was asking Repair, you know, it's a nice looking radio and it's beautiful and all that, except
I see it.
you know, so
No,
you know,
at least it's in the back.
What?
It's in the back at least.
True, but you know, I don't know what the deal is with this. See, it's cracked, but it you know, it's separated. So I don't know if you can really see it real well, but there's a crack there, but it's not back. In other words, it's not like it's cracked in a line there. It's actually
Spread out.
shifted.
Yeah, it's spread out.
Yeah, it's like if you run your finger over it, you can catch it. So there's actually a ridge there now. So it's kind of like it's cracked, but it like popped out, but it's not popped back in. So, you know, being Catalin, I just didn't want to touch it. I didn't know what's wrong. It's like, oh my God, what am I going to do?
Yeah, somebody would probably put a filler in and then sand it down and get it level.
Yeah, what I was thinking maybe, you know, seeing maybe coming from the inside and grinding some of this lip off so that I could get it back to its smooth and maybe use, you know, get it so at least it's smooth again.
Right.
Oh, there, you can see it a lot better there. It's like it got cracked and hit and it shifted and then it can't go back because it's, you know, it's.
Oh yeah, another thing about Catalin that I learned is that they always say, like, when the chassis is mounted to that, you don't want to over tighten the screws on the bottom that hold the chassis, because Catalin actually contracts and expands. And if you put the screws too tight, then a lot of times it cracks where the screws are just from the expansion of the Catalin.
Oh, okay.
So some people actually take the screws out and they put a rubber, like a rubber washer between the screw and the actual case, and then tighten it just a little bit, but the rubber washer allows a little expansion.
Oh, gotcha.
Have you taken the chassis out? Yeah.
No, but I better on this one. Now I noticed it's also cracked other places too. When it hit here, just noticed it. I wasn't paying much attention to it, but it's also cracked up here. It's got a lip there, and it's also cracked down here. So whoever dropped this, can you imagine that? Wow, they did a number. They cracked it here too. So when this fell and dropped, it really wrecked it pretty good.
Have you polished that at all?
No, not at all. I got this, really cheap. Well, I mean, it was a collection of radios and this was in it, but I mean, if this was perfect or at least near perfect, it would be worth something, I'm sure. But in the condition it is in right now, it's hard to say if it's worth much at all.
What I would do with that is I would take the chassis out and I would, clean it, put it under the sink, get all the dirt and grime out, get some Novus polish and just polish it up and see how it comes out. And then just leave the cracks there and just put it back together. I mean, I would just accept the cracks, but I'd make the radio look really nice. That looks like that would come out really nice, that red.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, I don't think this needs much polishing here.
No, it won't take much.
So no, let me write that down. Novus number 2.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Actually, I think the last time I bought that, I got it on eBay for a really good price with free shipping. I was surprised. There's Novus 1, 2, and 3. 1 is more of like just a plastic finisher. It doesn't really do anything much other than just protect the plastic. Number 2 is what you want to use. And number 3 is a more coarse. But the number 2 is what you want to use.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, don't ever use any type of like superfine sandpaper or anything. You can, if you don't want to use Novus 2, you could use like a polishing compound like you use for your car.
Oh,
Like a lens, the lens polisher. Even even toothpaste, believe it or not.
oh, wow. How about somebody, I know that other people were polishing big lines. So they were using this stuff called Blue Magic. Have you ever had experience with
Blue Magic makes car wax, so it's probably a Blue Magic rubbing compound. Yeah, it's probably automotive rubbing compound.
You think that's probably okay?
Well, I'd go with, I'd use the Novus too.
Okay. Yeah, I wish, so beautiful and stuff. I'm looking at it, it's like, wow, but it's too bad it's just all busted up.
But make it look really nice and then just leave the cracks like they are. And you can't really notice it that much because that one's in the back.
Yeah. Yeah, I just wish I could figure out how to like unbreak this, like try to put it back together. It's probably right here where it's separated. It probably got knocked and it's like has to go over this hump, to get back flat again. That's my guess.
But that would be a very expensive repair if you want it done professionally.
Uh-huh.
So that when it's done, you would never know there was a crack there.
Wow.
Everything
Yeah,
matches. I mean, these guys actually match the color and the swirl and everything.
Yeah, the thing I would worry about, Jeff, is how would they fill this? You know what I mean? There's a good chunk of it missing.
Well, they actually mix up Catalin. They actually make Catalin.
Oh,
in a
really?
small batch.
Wow.
It's probably some trial and error in that too to get the color and everything just right.
I think I'll take you up on that. I think what I'll do is go ahead and just take it apart, make sure the chassis is nice and loose and put in, very carefully with rubbers and grommets in there, and then maybe just polish it and see if there's, make it just display it like this. So you only see that much.
See how nice that you can make it.
Yeah, it's nice. Oh, well.
It gives it character. The cracks. What year is that?
I don't know. It's a Sentinel IU 284NR. So I'm going to guess by looking at it, maybe mid 40s.
Yeah, because not too many Catalin sets into the late 40s and 50s. They kind of stopped making them. So yeah, it could be late 30s, early 40s.
Yeah, you can go to the radio museum.
Right.
That tells you tons of information.
Oh, Pat, I gotta keep the dog out. I'll let you be
Okay.
the co-host. So I gotta go.
Well, I think I gotta
Yeah.
go. I gotta go too, I think.
Okay,
I'm good with,
ending it. Okay, thanks, guys. I sure appreciate it. It was a great Wednesday.
All right. Have a good night.
yeah.
All right, thank you so much.
We'll see you next week.
Pat, I'll send you a picture of that Catalin.
Oh, appreciate it. I love it.
All right. Good night, guys.
Okay, good night.